Hey, what's going on, everyone? Mike Singer, blueandgold.com. We tried to get the stream going. We had a quick technical difficulty, but we are back live to break down Notre Dame's 52-0 victory against USF, which I have a bachelor's degree from. So it was the Mike Goolsby versus Mike Singer Bowl, and Goolsby, your alma mater was victorious. It wasn't very close either. A couple of housekeeping items before we really get into the show. We have a flash sale going on. I mentioned it last week in our YouTube live show after the Duke game. You can get a year of blueandgold.com premium access for just $12 using code ND12 for one. Again, that's ND12FOR1. The deal ends Sunday night, so make sure to use it Saturday or Sunday. No guarantees. So again, this is premium access for just $12 for your first year at blueandgold.com. It's usually $99, $95, something like that. So this is the deal of the year that you're not going to want to miss. The rest of the season, recruiting coverage, I mean, for National Signing Day, you're not going to want to miss out on this deal. All of our team coverage, all the recruiting coverage, a great way to support the BGI staff is to go ahead and subscribe using promo code ND12FOR1. If you're watching this live, or you're watching the replay, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That really helps us out. And if you're listening back via podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to your podcast. All right, let's get right into the game, Mike. 52-0 win. Notre Dame didn't have a penalty until the fourth quarter. My prediction for the game was 42-16. Now I feel kind of silly because the game was fairly lopsided. My alma mater did not fare very well, Mike. What was kind of your instant takeaways from the game?
Yeah, the instant takeaway was USF's not very good. It's like kind of a lame answer, but that was like, gosh. And it was like super indicative based off of the first 2 or 3 times that they went to punt. It was like, good, man, have you guys practiced? They looked like a high school team. But defensively speaking, it's always great to have a shutout. It's definitely a point of pride for a defense to walk out of there with no points scored. And it's almost like, on the sideline in those types of scenarios, you almost have to create a game within the game. Like you have to do something now, just like create auxiliary challenges for yourself, kind of in that defensive huddle. Like our first couple series on offenses looked crisp. It looked like, I'm not going to call it a hurry up, but it was a little bit more up tempo. We did see Book kind of moving outside of the pocket, which is something I've been kind of calling for, begging for almost to see. We saw a couple guys like, we'll get to it, Mike, but like a kid like Kiser comes out of left field, we're not even really on the depth chart, and he shows up. So, and then the other thing, as the game kind of wound down, it was like, well, this is our spring game. You know what I'm saying? It was like spring game. This is our 2020 COVID edition of the Notre Dame spring game. So it's nice to see, and good for a lot of those younger kids to get out and get a chance to get some snaps in and get some film out there. So as convincing of a win as it was, and this is one of those days, Mike, where we've got to go through this with kind of a fine-tooth comb and try and find areas of improvement. But yeah, I know I asked for this last week and kind of harped on this, was creating turnovers on defense. So there's 2 balls today that we could have picked off. One was on a 4th down, so it didn't really make a difference, but dropped a wide open interception. When we talk about creating a championship level team, championship level culture, we've got to make those plays. So it could have been an even bigger blowout than the 52-0 we saw today. But definitely pleased. Got the running game going a little bit too. Still looking for that inside running game to kind of take flight a little bit more so than we seem to be focusing on outside off tackle plays. But yeah, starting to come into form after week 2.
Now, Mike, seeing what fans had to say after the Duke game, there was so much panic. And I'm like, it's the first game. That's something we talked about after last Saturday. But for this one, I'm seeing such joy for how the team looked, and I'm now like, guys, it's USF. It's like overreactions now on both sides that we beat Duke by this amount, so we stink, and hey, now we beat USF by this amount, so we're the greatest team. It's like both of them. I'm kind of like, you gotta not overreact on either side. Like the Duke game, you're overreacting, thinking Notre Dame stinks after that. Now you're overreacting to beating USF 52-0. It wasn't that great of a win. Like, everyone wants to talk about, let's just kind of wait till, FSU, Louisville, Clemson games to really judge Notre Dame. Am I crazy here, Mike, or do you agree with me there?
Well, I mean, not to disparage anybody, and that's not at all, but I mean, the word fan comes from fanatic, right? So it's like some of like what you're talking about, these reactions are fanatical. They're really high, they're really low. And I think it's probably best to take kind of a measured approach week to week. And we are building something here. And yeah, that week one, like the Duke game with the tumultuous offseason these kids have been through and the uncertainty. Yeah, you don't want to come down too hard on them. But yeah, it's going to be a process. I mean, you're making up for lost time. You're getting people reps. It's still remarkable to me, like how many kids we roll in and roll out of games. I mean, we've played a ton of kids. So I got to imagine, that's something that like, again, I'm looking at defensively, something Clark Lee's kind of done in the past, but with this COVID, we had a handful of starters out today, and it's like, do we know why some of these kids were out, Mike?
Yeah, Hamilton.
Is there an official?
We know Hamilton was out with the injury he suffered last week, which seeing that live, I was nervous. But didn't end up, being a long-term injury. So he was out with that. But otherwise, Notre Dame is just saying that they are out, and that's it. We're not getting any specific word on what that is, whether it's COVID related or not.
Yeah, but again, I think so. It's nice to see us to get kids snaps, get kids experience with throughout the course of the season. You've got to take COVID into account. So it's nice to get your depth some work.
Sure.
And that should serve you going forward. And to me, Mike, and we talked about this, Clemson. This is all sort of peaking or building towards Clemson. It's like, the playoffs in the NFL, like you should be at your peak come playoff season. So don't take too much away from this game. We still left a ton of plays out on the field. There's a saying in football, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Like you might think you had an awful game and you go put the tape on, you're like, damn, I played all right. And then you think you had an amazing game and you left 4 or 5 plays on the field that you should have had. So it's week 2. I'm happy to see they got a shutout. Offense is evolving a little bit. I mean, looks like we've got four kids that can tote the pill, that can play running back for us, which is exciting. So again, just to the fans, like we're building for Clemson, right? I mean, that's the trajectory.
Special thanks to Blake Way Panoramas for bringing some Fighting Irish spirit to my home office. For our YouTube audience, I have a sweet, this is the deluxe frame panorama 2017 shot of Notre Dame Stadium. I love it. So
nice housewarming present.
Absolutely. So their large panoramic prints create a fan-worthy focal point in your home office. Fan cave, make the perfect gift for the Notre Dame fan in your life. So see the entire Notre Dame sports collection. They have 3 Notre Dame football shots, 2 basketball, and a hockey. So go to panoramas.com, or we also have them in our Irish fan shop at bluegoldonline.com. So
Mike, how come they didn't send one my way? Is that in the mail?
Maybe a bunch of people buy this and we get one out to you as well, Mike. So again, big thank you to Blake Way Panoramas for this awesome shot. Seriously, I'm a USF grad here, and I'm still absolutely loving this thing. So, next segment here, Mike, talking about who flashed. We have a comment. Was from, I believe it was Mark 1, saying Kiser kind of reminds me of Mike Goolsby. We had a comment from Mark there. So I know Jack Kiser, who last week was not on our radar as someone who we were expecting to see action. And so, and here he is. He pops, and I'm sure he's certainly someone you feel like flashed.
Yeah, absolutely. Kiser would probably be number one on the list. And we talked about this last week with Owusu Koromoa. When you watch the guy play, everything, his decisions and his movement, it's very decisive and almost sharp, crisp. And you saw that from Kiser. There's not a lot of delay. There's not a lot of delay. There's not a lot of processing time. And this is what I've been looking for from his kind of compadre there, Drew White. Like, see it, believe it, shoot your gun. And you saw that from Kiser today. So, to me, if Mark 1 is saying that looked like a little bit like Goolsby, to me, he looks like a Drew Tranquil, almost like clone. It just body type, etc. So and I'm sure that's what they had in mind when they recruited Kiser. Kiser looked good. Tremble looked really nice. It was almost like they tried to feature him on the broadcast. It's like they had an ISO shot of him almost on every other play. But yeah, he did a great job blocking, and I know I said that last week. Like, he doesn't seem like the body type to be kind of that bruiser sort of blocker, but yeah, he looked tremendous today. So those two guys would probably be the first two that sort of jumped off. And Tyree, a couple plays flashed, specifically he flashed. He had a nice run, probably like 20-something yards. Starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the timing of these carries, timing of the runs, developing the play. So good things. Push the ball down the field a little bit. But yeah, those two guys would probably be my, get your game balls.
Now, areas of improvement. There will be some different things we get into specifically about maybe we would have liked to seen differently, but specifically about certain guys, getting into some different questions I'm sure we're getting from our YouTube and message board audience, but kind of general themes of improvements, Mike.
Yeah, I think offensively, start on the offensive side of the ball. We got to be able to push the ball downfield, and you got to be able to get people open, or people have got to put themselves in a position to go up and get that 50-50 ball. Lindsey was out there. He showed up a couple times today, which is, again, encouraging, keeping with that theme of building. I would like to see them try and run the ball inside a little bit more. We think about Clemson, and Clemson, to me, I almost look at them as an SEC team, right? It's
right.
Just that they might as well be in the SEC. It's that type of football where guys fly around and they want to come downhill. And in a lot of ways, you're doing people a favor on the defensive side of the ball that has that sort of team speed on defense if you're running outside. So I would like to see them show the ability to hit it up the middle, to get 4 or 6 yards on those kind of chunk runs. Defensively, I think, Mike, it's been a couple games where we haven't seen a turnover
right.
for the Irish, creating turnovers. And that turnover margin, that's a huge statistic. We dropped 2 more today. One, the second kind of missed opportunity it would have been a hell of a play to pick that ball off in that tip pass in the end zone. They went at our freshman corner today. He held up really, really nice, but he himself dropped the ball. So, hell, Mike, you pitched a shutout. Again, this is that fine-tooth comb. But me personally, that's what I want to see is turnovers, because in those big-time games, when we missed a field goal too. So some of this is kind of good. It'll turn into an afterthought down the road. But when we talk about a big game like a Clemson, you cannot miss those opportunities to turn the game with a pick, and even like a field goal, man. A game like that, it's going to matter. So yeah. Just cleaning up a little bit more execution.
Thinking about it, I guess that block punt touchdown, that doesn't count as a turnover. Is that because they scored? Kind of.
Yeah. We'd have to go to the judges on that one.
But I guess not. The game was. They really struggled. South Florida did on that punt team. But,
the punter's 30 years old. It's like if you hadn't figured it out by now. It's like take another step back or something when he's back there. So yeah, that's that defensively, we did a great job against the run. And I guess even on the second half, it's like, they showed on the broadcast, they showed Kelly's halftime speech, like, let's not let them score. They did come out a little bit flat. And, so, again, as an ex-player, some of those day games, it's like it's hard to get up. You're up 35-0 at halftime, but just to continue to keep that high level of execution. So I guess, you would have liked to seen us put our foot on their throat a little bit more, just to keep the gas on, whatever sort of analogy you want to use. But good game. I just want to see some turnovers, man. Because it's going to matter down the road.
So Notre Dame fifth-year senior quarterback Ian Book completed 12 of 19 passes, 143 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Of course, on the ground, quite the interesting stat line. You often don't see this much. He's counted for 4 rushes, 9 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So he certainly got in the end zone. But a question from KMA Preston: do you think Notre Dame will get the pass game going next week? Which I would also add. Would you say the Notre Dame pass game was going with the USF game today? Because Book pretty much got, whatever he wanted. There was certainly some instances where he looked option 1, option 3, no one's there, check down. But what was just your overall takeaway with Ian Book and the passing attack?
I wasn't blown away. I mean, it might have been late second quarter. We were in the red zone, and we threw it on first down. And I think he threw it to Brock Wright. Brock Wright wasn't sure the ball was going to him. And then we ended up running it on consecutive plays there afterwards. And I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to see if we could throw it in the red zone. We didn't execute. Didn't turn the ball over, which is fine. Book. But yeah, it's still a work in progress. I mean, I'm not blown away. There's a couple, like 2 or 3 inaccurate throws that Book made. There's one play specifically you said you could see where he went through his projection 1, 2, 3, and then we ended up just throwing the ball away. And it's like I think he actually fell forward for 2 or 3 yards, and that's like I'd much rather see you look 1, 2 and then pull it down and go, because the pass protection was there today. And yeah, that's a part of his game that I wish we embraced. We, the coaching staff, the offensive scheme, like embrace the mobility factor and encourage him to go get 5, 6, 7 yards on the ground. So that's still a work in progress. I'm not impressed up to this point. No.
How is there concern? You're someone who's been a big Ian Book supporter, mm-hmm. Through 2 games. Yeah, I'm sure you would agree that you even mentioned this last week, and I'm sure you would agree with it now, that it just kind of looks like 2019 Ian Book doesn't look like a much improvement. Are you concerned by that yet, or not?
I mean, concern's probably a strong word, Mike, because we've been winning with Ian Book. But yeah, it's not ideal. How's that? It's just not an ideal scenario where, you haven't seen that huge jump in his development, and again, the pushing the ball downfield. But if folks aren't open, they're not open either. So I'd rather have us, have a strong run game, and then you kind of get into that game manager type role for Book, which is sort of what he's been up to this point. He did look calmer this week versus last week in terms of his footwork. It
would have been hard in the pocket. It would have been hard not to be calm when he had absolutely no pass. I mean, there was nothing in his face. But did he not have happy feet this week?
No, I don't. You didn't see him fading away on his throws, but he wasn't as accurate as I'm sure as he'd like to be. So concern's a strong word, but yeah, at this point he is what he is, and I'm not holding my breath, but yeah, you'd like to see more splash plays, pushing the ball downfield, and or picking up a handful of yards running the ball. So some of the plays are just like we come up with nothing, and then now we're into 3rd and 10. So yeah, people got to get open. People got to get open, or to me, take off. 1, 2 isn't there, take off and pick up 9. So.
And I do believe we had a question in the YouTube chat asking about. It was KMA Preston's question. the pass game going, and certainly could look at Ian Book as, you know, he didn't put up the great numbers. Well, he also didn't need to. But the receiving game, Mike, Braden Lenzy, 3 receptions for 34 yards. Javon McKinley, 1 reception for 7 yards. That's it from the receivers. You had Tommy Tremble, tight end, Kyron Williams, Jafar Armstrong, Sibo Flemister. Your running backs, Kevin Baum and Michael Mayer, a couple of tight ends. There was the guys who caught receptions. I mean, there was only, 14 or 13 catches to pass on the day, but you only had 4 by receivers. I mean, you just mentioned the guy's got to get open. So it was nice to see Lenzy in there. He had that 22-yard reception down the sideline that looked really nice. But otherwise, I mean, same kind of question. Are you concerned at all with a receiver player's concerns still too strong?
Well, I think, the receiver play and Book's performance, obviously, it goes without saying, but they go hand in hand. So, yeah, you got to get people open. But if folks aren't open, then and if Book's trying to force the ball deep into double coverage or whatever is the case, then we're going to be complaining that Book's turning the ball over. So
sure,
if you look at it where we're at in week 2 with this crazy offseason, you've got a quarterback that hasn't turned the ball. He did throw some picks, but he's not turning the ball over. It's a conservative game plan, we'll call it, against a team like USF. So maybe coaches are still keeping some of those longer developing plays kind of holstered until we need them down the road. I don't know. I mean, it's being optimistic, but so far his play has been sufficient, right? It's been sufficient, but I didn't say wow watching the game much today.
Sure. We are fully taking questions right now from our YouTube audience and our message board, Rockneys Roundtable. Again, use promo code ND12 for 1 to get your year-long blueandgold.com subscription for just $12. I've been with Rivals for 7 years, and I've never seen a deal like this. So make sure to get this deal while it lasts. Question from Ben Weiss asking about some of these young defensive players. You had Jack Kiser, who we touched on. Jordan Patelho made a couple of plays, big plays on the punt return team. Clarence Lewis. Mike, Notre Dame brought in 3 in the 2020 recruiting class. Lewis was the most unheralded one of that group. Mm-hmm. So if anyone says, I saw this coming with Clarence Lewis, that he'd be a guy ready to go as a true freshman who did not enroll early during this COVID, I would slap him across the face.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't. I don't have the cojones for that. But, I mean, seriously, no one saw Clarence Lewis. I mean, the dude looks ready. KJ Wallace played in the fourth quarter. I mean, Alexander Ahrensberger, big lengthy dude from Germany, 3-star guys coming in and making plays again. This is against USF. Still, it's got to be pretty encouraging, Mike, that these young guys are making a strong impression right away.
Yeah, was there a question there, Mike, from the
what was kind of your impressions of some of these guys?
So the corner, first of all, he's big. He's 6'1", and he was he's like I watch that stuff, and sometimes you can't help but notice it, but he seems confident. Like that deep ball they threw, that deep post that we should have picked the ball off. I think DJ Brown, kind of just missed. It was a half a step late to pick that ball off. But that's a stressful situation for a true freshman to be in, and he just stuck his hand up there, and he was just calm. So that's really encouraging. But yeah, a game like this, I mean, who knew we had a 6'7", 270-pound defensive end like waiting in the wings? So yeah, it's fun to see those guys get out and play a little bit. And if they are called upon with this COVID season, I don't think those coaches would be kind of losing as much sleep as they would be just because you've got somebody that's been a little bit baptism by fire. They've been in the game. So yeah, it's definitely fun to see. But at a certain point in time, it just begs the question, like, I was watching the game with my buddy from college. He came to visit. Shout out to Larry Hoffman, St. Edward's Hall. But like we're watching the game, and he's like, what's it like to get like pulled in and out. Like you're rotated. You're in one series, you're out two plays, you're in 3 plays. So I'm just curious to see how this develops going forward with that rotation on defense. Like Bo Bauer's in, Bo Bauer's out. Drew White's in, Jack Kiser's in, Jack Kiser's out. So what is the methodology behind like the rotation? So and shoot, I mean, Jack Lamb was out there running around today, right? And then he wasn't even like on the depth chart 2 weeks ago. So
Sure.
that to me is going to be really curious to see is like, okay, who's your established guys? Because it seems like now it's like everything's almost split into thirds in terms of reps.
Does that hurt chemistry for yourself, Mike? Like,
it depends. I mean, it's a very professional approach to the game, like from a coaching standpoint. Like, okay, it doesn't matter whether you're in there for one play and you get pulled or whether you're in there for an entire drive or an entire series. You guys still have to execute. So like me as an ex-player, I hated getting pulled out because you need to get into the flow of the game
sure.
and start kind of vibing with that. But it would hurt a little bit of chemistry because not everybody has the same know-how. Not everybody has the same ability, but just in terms of executing, where they know that scheme in and out, or like they know it like the back of their hand. Not every kid is there right now. So I don't know if giving a kid 4 reps or 12 reps during a game is going to catch him up to your established starter. I don't have that answer. So I'm not personally a fan of it, like especially at like key positions like your middle linebacker. Like you rotate your defensive line. I think your corners play. I think your safeties play. I think your linebackers play, and then you rotate your defensive line. If you've got a guy that I noticed on the first 3rd and 10, they put Bauer in, they took Drew White out. This is just me ranting, but like on all those linebackers too. I hate to talk about linebackers. Actually, I'd love to talk about linebackers.
Keep
like,
talking about
hold
them.
your damn water, like on all these blitzes. And I'm sure like Clark Lee, like hold your water. Like they telegraph the blitz, which takes away from the efficacy of that given snap. So that's something like little things that they need to clean up as the season continues or progresses.
Question from Mike Singer here. Yep, that's me. As a former, how do you feel, or when you were playing, how do you feel about these kind of beatdown games? Maybe the Notre Dame players weren't expecting to beat USF as bad as they did, but like, do you enjoy these kind of games? Are you kind of like, I don't care, I'm looking to the next team, something else?
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. It's one of those scenarios where like on the sidelines, you almost have to create a game within the game. So to challenge yourself and to keep yourself sharp. And then but it's kind of fun as an established starter when you get to see some of those backups go in there and get some love. So that's always fun to see. But yeah, that's the big takeaway is like, you have to fight human nature that in the 3rd quarter, you're up 35-0 and you don't want to start smelling the hot dogs. Like, like you have to keep your focus. So that's probably the biggest challenge in those environments, but you do so by like, all right, who's going to get the first pick, right? Who's going to get a sack or whatever? Like, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to get more tackles for loss than you are. And then for some of those established guys, it's a really like their mindset, like, is I'm trying to pad stats. And, I might get pulled halfway through the 3rd quarter, so I got to get mine now.
Sure.
It's sort of a different mentality depending on, I guess, where you're at in terms of your career. How many years of eligibility do you have left?
A question from Thomas Dunway via YouTube. He asked, there was a lot of praise for Tommy Tremble's blocking today. Do you think it was accurate or was it overstated? Something like you mentioned earlier, Mike, it seemed like they had a Tommy Tremble cam, and anytime he blocked somebody, Tony Dungy was heaping praise on it. I want to say after the Duke game that, we were critical of Tremble's blocking. So, I mean, what was your take on his play today?
Yeah, and I don't think like critical again was like a little bit too harsh, but I think it was like he's a certain body type, he's a certain athlete, and you're again square peg round hole kind of analogy. But yeah, he looked good. And Michael Mayer looked good. I mean, he looked good. I don't think it was overstated. I really don't. I think it's like he almost looked like he was kind of on a mission. Maybe they give him a heads up, like, hey, dude, we're going to have a camera on you today. So, but yeah, he looked like a physical he looked almost a little bit turned up today, especially in that first half. The team came out with more juice in the first half, and I think Tremble's blocking was kind of reflective of that.
So Notre Dame's leading rusher today was Sibo Flemister. I mean, the top two guys on the running back depth chart, from what we've seen and kind of anticipated, Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree, respectively. Well, Sibo Flemister led the way, 13 attempts, 127 yards, and a score. He had that long run of 31 yards. All the backs look great, but the question here from Christopher Kelly is Sibo Flemister an underrated running back? What do you think about his running style today, Mike?
That's a great way of framing the questions. What do I think about his running style? He looked like he was running hard. He was almost like a little bit like discombobulated at times. Like there was a lot of flailing. Like he was just like, screw it. Like I'm putting my head down. I'm getting what I can get. So there's a real sense of urgency in terms of like how he approached his carries. Is he underrated? I think we're going to see a rotation. I think there's probably going to be a little bit of game script scenario wise, which player does the coach want to plug in? But he ran hard today. He really did. So I'm still, like I said, I'm still looking for some of these inside, all of our runs specifically. It's like they're almost outside and to the right. I'm waiting for the day where one of these kids puts their foot in the ground and hits it up inside, and we could pop one that way. So good game for Sibo. He looked hungry today. Yeah. So that was encouraging to see. He ran hard.
We got plenty of questions here about the Notre Dame defensive linemen, and especially some of these young guys. So in there today, you had guys like Isaiah Foskey, Riley Mills, interior guy, and we touched on Alexander Ahrensberger, big German defensive end. Jordan Patelho we touched on as well. Read you a couple questions here that are fairly similar, Mike. One from RRH1. Do you think those guys can rival schools like OSU and Georgia down the line, next year after? And also, can you comment on some of these guys and how much should we temper that enthusiasm of their abilities versus, say, a real ACC team?
So Foskey, absolutely. We touch on this as it pertains to recruiting often, Mike, is like body types and the way somebody moves. Like Foskey is a guy, like he's a dude. He's got long arms, covers a lot of ground. He's like, again, I gotta come up with a word. I need your help with this, Mike. Put that USF degree to work, but like, like the pliability, the bendability, like Foskey.
Said bendy. We like bendy.
Yeah, Foskey's gonna be the real deal. And then some of the other kids, like the German kid, had a nice sack, but it was just kind of a throwaway play. So like, you challenge the viewers, challenge the fans, blue and gold subscribers when they're watching. Does the kid throw some sort of a move on that third down where he got that pass rush, or was it just like kind of a coverage sack type thing?
Right.
Where we talk about like on our post-game segments, like who flashes. So Foskey really flashes. Owusu Koromoa flashes. Like you can just tell by their athleticism versus it ended up being a coverage sack. But depth in the defensive line, we had good interior push last week from your interior guys. But that was a note that I wrote down during the game. There wasn't a tremendous amount of, like, you didn't see a dominant game up front from our front four in terms of rushing the pass. I mean, again, they made a couple plays, but just consistently living in the backfield, we didn't quite see that today. And that could have been due to just playing so many youngsters. So I would say temper the expectations, but early indications of Foskey, he's legit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting two-part question here from Hond on our blueandgold.com message board. Really interesting question. I'm looking forward to seeing what answer you have here. What advice would you give Ian Book with 8 games left this season to showcase his skills? I'm guessing that's just regular season. And do you think he has 8 games left, or with this potential extra year of eligibility that he could have, the NCAA is basically giving this it's a freebie of a year, and I guess Notre Dame kind of gets to decide if they're welcome back or not. Do you think, again, what advice would you give Book, and what do you think about him potentially coming back for a 6th year?
I love that question, first of all. Um, what advice would I give Ian Book? If I was having a conversation with him, I'd ask him, Ian, what are your strengths? Like as a player, what are your strengths? I don't want to hear about leadership. I don't want to, like, physically speaking, like, what are you best at? Well, I like to do this. Okay, well, let's build off of that. So you like to throw on the run, you like to get out of the pocket, you like to pull it down. Well, then do that. And just know that you're the guy. Like I've been touching on this before, like you got to believe in your ability. And I don't know how to put it. So sometimes like I want to blame Kelly because it doesn't seem like oftentimes like the kids are having enough fun out there. It almost seems like they're playing a little bit uptight to me. Just as an ex-player, like so go have fun is kind of let it rip. So there's some times where that guy's wide open. And I almost feel like, and I've never met Ian Book, I've never spoke to him, and I'm not a sports psychologist, but like you got a guy that's wide open, and I think it was McKinley was wide open, and he threw it a little bit behind him. So like, where's your brain at before you pull the trigger and let that ball fly? Are you or are you not thinking at all and you're just firing the ball? So like he's got to get to that point where, like I was kidding with a friend, like he almost needs to take like half a Xanax or something before the game kicks off. So just to chill out, like chill out, go play. So that would be my advice. And I don't know. I mean, I can't predict the future. So then, I mean, if you're saying after the 2020 season, are they going to have him back? I don't know. It's not my call.
Yeah.
It's not like he's holding the program back. So maybe you'd have him back, and then he'll check his draft stock and see where that, where he's kind of slotted to go. And then, if he wants to come back. But, I mean, we're 2 games into the season. Let's worry about the next 8 games before we worry about next year.
Question from Irish Diego on our blueandgold.com message board. Talking about Jack Kiser, Mike. Given his production today, what kind of role do you envision for him once the starters return? So, Maris Lou files out. And I mean, if you're Clark Lee, how do you kind of manage that? Because, like you said, Mike, linebacker's a spot you personally don't want to see a ton of guys rotating in and out. You want to let them have the feel of the game and really be in there every play. So, I mean, what do you do with Jack Kiser?
Why couldn't you start him?
Well, that's certainly an answer.
So did Shane. Did we talk about Shane Simon? Did we talk about Maris?
Yeah. Those are guys, for all I know right now, that were healthy after last game. Uh-huh. So whether that's a something that happened this week in practice or a COVID-related thing, we do not know at this time.
So we can't pretend to know all of the intricacies of the defense. He may have made a dozen mistakes in pass coverage. I don't know. But you're looking for kids that play downhill and kids that seek out the ball and they sort of jump off the screen. And like if you watch like Drew White play, like you contrast Drew White and you contrast Kiser today. And Drew White's kind of like a water bug, back and forth. And then Kiser's like he just jumps and makes the play. So I don't know why he couldn't start. It's not like Shane Simon's got like this 2-year, like not like he was a honorable mention All-American or something like that, right? They're all, to me, it's like they're all kind of starting on the same they all kind of have like a clean slate going into this season. So I don't see why you couldn't start him. And I really mean that.
Question from Mark 1 again. What did you think about the O-line play today? We haven't discussed that yet. Like, obviously, Book had plenty of time to throw the ball. Running game was great. Mm-hmm. What did you think?
Yeah. I'm pleased watching it. And I think everybody was a little bit disappointed in terms of their play week 1, but I don't think anybody was alarmed or anybody was concerned. It just takes time to kind of gel.
Well, what was interesting, Mike, is Pro Football Focus. Sometimes I love them, sometimes I don't so much, but they had Notre Dame as the #1 offensive line unit from just week 1 play. So their analytics loved how that unit played.
Sure. But to the eye,
right.
It just wasn't like for what the expectations are and for what the end result was coming out of week 1. I think it was a bit of a letdown. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, they're coming together as a unit. And we're giving Book time now because we all want to talk about Book and we want to talk about quarterback play. So Book's getting the time. So now the second piece of that puzzle is scheming people open. So it's like the first part's wrapped up, and then I did predict like last week, going back to the offensive line, I thought we would see more inside run game this week, which we didn't quite see. So that'll be something where you're talking about a push up the middle, and a kid like Tyree that could hide. He's a smaller back. He can hide and hit it. I can't wait to see that pop.
Yeah, Tyree did have a couple of nice inside runs. I can certainly remember one that, he had that 50 or so where he was kind of bouncing off some guys that maybe they couldn't see him.
Yeah, but both he and Kyron, they both have really good. I mean, gosh, they look like the same player. Like they look, again, 23 and 25. They both got really good contact balance, but we keep talking about build up to Clemson. You beat some of those. And Clemson's got better athletes than us, even if they're 10% or 5% better. They're marginally better athletes. The way you sort of negate that is you punch them in the mouth, that inside run. So that's going to be something to continue to progress with.
Still plenty of show here left, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Again, flash sale. You're probably sick and tired of me hearing this. I'm going to keep saying it until you subscribe. So go ahead. ND12 for 1. That's your promo code ND12FOR1. Like the video, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave us that 5-star review if you're listening via podcast. Mike, when we brought you on, I want to say we hired you, March, April, to be our football analyst at BGI, and I wanted to get you right away breaking down recruits. So you break down games, you break down recruits. Those are the two main things you have us doing. And one of the first guys I sent to you was Chris Tyree. I know you had heard about him. You hadn't really dived into his film much. You loved them. Will Shipley is a big target for Notre Dame this 2021. Well, formerly was a big target. I had you kind of compare both. You have Tyree, the 2020 class, this incoming freshman class, and 2021 would be the current high school seniors. You like Tyree a lot better. Are you surprised at all? This is just a Mike Singer question. Are you surprised at all that he's this good this soon, or based on his high school tape, I knew that this kid was going to be this good?
No, I'm not surprised, and I like the way that they're handling him. I don't think they have shown a lot of trust. Like they gave him an entire series this past week here. I do like the way they're handling him. In terms of bringing him
around. It's not like they're just jets. It's like, all right, well, every time 25 comes in, it's a jet sweep. It's obvious. Yeah, because they're giving him real carries like he's the real number two back.
They've left him in on third down. But no, I'm not surprised. And the thing was, he on film, his high school tape, he's got the ability to make people miss and make his own yards. And that's big time football. You're going to have to make somebody miss. Not everybody's going to be blocked in every single play. And in the recent past with our backs, it's they need it to be blocked just so for us to get 7 yards. Whereas Tyree can drop his weights, make a little jump cut or whatever. So no, I'm not surprised. And yeah, and Shipley was more of the same to me. He's got these long outside zone stretch plays that are just beautiful in terms of his high school highlight tape. But if it gets gummed up on any given play, nothing really happens. It almost seemed like a home run or a 2-yard gain, where Chris Tyree's that type of back that can make a 7-yard play look beautiful.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Question from John A1. He asks, it seems that 12 and 13 personnel is the new norm. Will that be the best way to attack going forward, or do we need to put more wide receivers out there and add some speed to really thrive in 11 personnel?
Well, I think with I alluded to that. I think I got the sense in talking to some of the coaches in the offseason that you're going to see a lot of multiple tight end sets. And right now, that might be our strength on offense, personnel-wise, is our tight end room. So why not roll them out? And when you go these empty sets, these spread sets, that quarterback's just looking for a mismatch. So it's okay, well, you've got the linebacker walked out on Tremble, and he's got help over the top from a single high safety. It's and it's 3rd and 7, you're just running an ISO route with Tremble. So, but yeah, right now it just seems like that's our kind of our bread and butter until we can develop 1 or 2 special talents on the outside.
Question from Christopher Kelly.
That being said, though.
Oh.
That being said, if I had a magic lantern, one of my 3 wishes might be for Book to go under center more. We touched on this again before, and I know I've seen comments from fans, but like the play action game, in my opinion, is more effective when the quarterback's under center than out of a gun. But sure. I digress.
Question from Christopher Kelly. What was your favorite part of the victory today?
Oh, favorite part of the victory? Shoot, I'd just say probably a kid like Kiser, local kid, getting a chance to go in there and bang heads. That's probably the most fun aspect for me.
And he also asked, overall, what should we take out of this lopsided victory? Is there a ton, or is it, this was our spring game pretty much?
I wouldn't take out a ton. I would just say my thoughts, or my, I guess, advice for Notre Dame fans at this point is like, it's just another step in the right direction. Let's not do too much of this. Let's not
minimize it.
Yeah, let's not minimize it. Let's not blow it out of proportion. It was a good game. Could have been, we could have won 70-0. But we did miss a field goal. We dropped a couple picks, and we still need to keep developing on offense and find ways to get people open. But it's just a step towards our march towards Clemson.
Quick shout out to true freshman quarterback Drew Pine. Completed his first pass today. I've mentioned him that it was a podcast me, you, and Loose Emoji did. Who knows, June, July. I went on a tangent for a good 5-10 minutes, just kind of talk about how much I like this kid. When you mentioned earlier with Book, like, all right, you see that receiver open downfield. Are you nervous about if you're going to miss him, or are you just letting it loose? When you said that, Mike, I thought Pine, he is absolutely just letting it loose. So, some people kind of compare Pine with Book because they are that smaller quarterback, and but I think
Pine looks like a baby too.
Yeah, he was 5'11", 195. So, but still, hey, maybe I've stood next to John's dad. He's pretty tall, so maybe get up to 6'6'1", but he's just a hair under 6 foot. But Pine completed a pass to Kevin Bauman, another true freshman. So got that true freshman connection, both Northeast guys as well. So I just want to give a little shout out to Drew Pine there. That's going to do it for our second live show on YouTube. Thank you for everyone who watched live. Thank you to everyone who watched back. And to our podcast audience, we appreciate you as well. Make sure to stay locked in to blueandgold.com for all of your Notre Dame Fighting Irish football coverage, whether that be the football team, recruiting. Hey, basketball season's coming up, I believe, right? Basketball season, November or something is starting. So we will have excellent basketball coverage as well if you like covering Mike Bray's team, as well as the women's basketball team, Ivy. We are thinking that she's going to do big things there. So make sure to lock in to blueandgold.com for all of your Fighting Irish coverage.